All right, here we go. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Tamika Miller. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Events at the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here today to talk with you for just a brief second to actually introduce you to our presenter, Pamela Shand. She is going to be talking to you today about resume and cover letter writing 101. I know I had a discussion with a friend of mine and I said, do people even use cover letters anymore? Well, they do. And she's going to talk to you about all the steps and reasons why people use cover letters, how you can use a cover letter, and then she's going to also share with you some resume tips. So please feel free to engage with her, ask her questions in the chat, and she will lead you through the discussion. So I am pleased to now announce Pamela Shand. She is the founder and CEO of Offer Stage Consulting. So look them up, Offer Stage Consulting. Pamela Shand, I hand the floor over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tamika. I appreciate the warm and the kind introduction. I appreciate, having the opportunity to, work with your organization once again. Super excited to be here. Good afternoon to all 20 attendees. We are going to be talking today about resume and cover letter writing, and we're going to keep it really simple. I'm going to purposely try to make all of the concepts and the lessons really easy to understand, which is why it's called Resume and Cover Letter Writing 101. We're going to talk about, as you see here, targeting the jobs. You can get the interview and then ultimately the offer. This is who I am, as Tamika mentioned. I am the founder of Offer Stage Consulting, and as an organization, what we do is we provide resume and cover letter writing services, of course, to job seekers. We manage LinkedIn profiles, interview, career coaching, so everything you need to kind of get that job that you're after. And then we also work with organizations on talent acquisition strategies as well, because the hiring process is not just one-sided. So in this presentation, I am going to keep it really simple for you, I'm going to pull a lot of what we talk about from our resume and cover letter toolkit that we provide to clients. For those of you, I did also include the link in our HOVA app page. If you have not gotten the toolkit, you do have a code here. All the attendees get a free copy. You simply head over to our shop, use code OFFER, download a free copy, because we are going to be using, you're going to be looking at rather the resume and the cover letter templates from the toolkit, as well as some of the tips that are in there. So if you don't have it, you can certainly grab it after we're done here. You can even grab it, during the presentation, perfectly fine. That way you can kind of, keep up with the presentation. Also, for those of you who have an existing resume and cover letter, if you have that in front of you, if you have it, whether it's on the screen or printed out, that's fantastic, because you'll be able to take some notes on it and get some tips to improve it right away. If you don't have an existing resume and cover letter, don't worry. What we cover here will certainly put you on the path to creating one. I would also recommend having, whether it's digital or you like me sometimes, like to do the old-fashioned way and have a pen and paper, definitely have a way where you can take notes, because we're going to be discussing a lot of information, and I certainly would want you to have that. It's going to be really helpful for you. Today, what we're going to cover is, first things first, in order for you to have a successful job search process with the resume and the cover letter, you need to have a job you actually want to apply to, right? So we're going to talk about how to find the job you want, because that's going to give you direction as you're creating your resume and your cover letter. I think at this point, we've all heard about applicant tracking systems and keywords. We're going to talk about what those keywords are, how can you identify them in a job posting, so that way what the verbiage should look like, right? The most important part of your resume and your cover letter really is the content. That's what the applicant tracking system receives and scans through. So you want to make sure that you know how to pull the right content out of that job description and plug it right into your resume and your cover letter in the right way. We're going to create a cover letter that works, create a resume that gets beyond that applicant tracking system. ATS is applicant tracking system. So that way you get the interview. I always say this to clients and potential clients. I tell them, you know, the resume and the cover letter, they get you the interview. You get you the job, but you have to get that interview, right? So that way you can get your foot in the door. So that starts off with you having the right cover letter and the right resume. This is absolutely step one. So you get this correct, everything else will flow beautifully. All right. So first thing I want all of you to do, I want you to rate your resume right now. If you have a resume, hop into the comments. If you're on Zoom, if you're on WOBA, hop into the comments, you know, and rate your resume. Let me know. In your opinion, is your resume a 1, meaning that it's not that great and you're probably not comfortable sending it out? You probably see jobs you like and you don't even apply because you think my resume is just not up to par. They're probably not going to call me back. You're just not feeling very good about it. Or is your resume a 10? You feel like, oh, my resume is perfect. I just want some tips. I could, you know, apply to a job right now. I'll probably get an interview. Or is it somewhere in the middle? So I want you to kind of hop into the comments, kind of say, you know, 1, 2, 5, 7, 10. Let me know what you think of the current condition of your resume and your cover letter. And I would say if you're at a place where you feel like you're between like a 9 and a 10, you're probably going to get some great tips in this meeting. But if you're at, you know, 7 or below, which a lot of people, you know, find that they are, then this is absolutely going to help get you on the right track. So I see some comments coming in. Definitely go ahead and let me know where you feel you stand. I see 6 or at least somewhere between 5 and 7. Very honest. Very honest. There are a lot of people who would say the same. 5, 8.5. I love it. 8. Someone shared 8. Okay, good. 6. Okay, good. Good. 7. Okay, good. Good. So this is the perfect presentation for you to be a part of, because if you're at this middle of the road, 5, 6, 7, a lot of people who fall into this gap. Oh, wonderful. Just had mine professionally done. I love that, Gail. So Gail said she said a 10, but guess what? She said a 10 because she just had hers professionally done. Right. So I think that's awesome, Gail. Still think you're definitely going to learn something today, but I think that's fantastic that you saw the value in hiring a professional and got it done. But I see most people are in between, you know, 5 to 8 or 8.5, which is great. So a lot of people who fall into that kind of middle of the road gap, those are usually folks who they might have a nice uh, you know, kind of, you know, structure to their resume, but the content is not there. So it may even be nice looking, but they're still not getting the response from employers that they would hope. And that's where we're going to talk about the content today. So resume is not all we're going to discuss. Also, we're going to talk a lot about cover letters. So another question to the group. Do you use a cover letter when you apply to jobs? Give me a quick yes or no in the chat. Yes, I use a cover letter. No, I don't. Sometimes, always, never. Don't see the point. I always use a cover letter. Let me know kind of where you stand with that. I used to. Okay, very honest. I love it. Gail said yes. I think this is Gail Brown, who just had her resume done. Always says yes. Good. Dwayne, yes. Awesome. Yes, but they're my weak point. You're not alone. Yes, always. Yep. Good. Well, I'm happy to see that so many of you are saying yes. And I love the honesty saying I used to. I see people are saying sometimes. These are all, you know, the common answers. Some people say yes, I use it. Some say I used to. I don't know if recruiters even read them. I have no idea if I should even be using them. And you know, I would tell you to use it. And here's a couple of fun facts why. 64% of jobs with a direct application process, meaning that they want you to apply via email, require a cover letter. And 61% of recruiters who are getting applications through applicant tracking systems would love to see a cover letter. And here I kind of explained the breakdown of what the resume does for you versus a cover letter. So now the resume tells a recruiter, tells someone, like me or an employer, who you worked for, what you did, what you accomplished. That's really important. You don't just want to talk about duties. You want to talk about accomplishments, when you did it, right, and how you did it. The cover letter, however, tells an employer why you're interested in the job, why you're qualified, and why that employer needs to read your resume. The cover letter almost incentivizes the reader to read the resume and give it more than that 6 seconds of attention that we always hear that resumes get. And it clearly communicates your interest. The resume does not do that the way the cover letter does. So putting the two of them together kind of gives you this dynamic duo package to an employer. It gives them the full picture of who you are professionally, why you want this role, why they need to read your resume, and then goes into all of the who, what, when, and how that is shown on the resume. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to create both and do it successfully. So let's start with, some of our 3 steps when it comes to what we're going to talk about today. First, I told you we want to start with the job you actually want to apply to. Any career coach, resume writer, recruiter, anyone who is a professional at what they do in this area will tell you the strongest application, meaning the strongest resume, the strongest cover letter, is always, 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 always targeted to the job. Okay. And anyone who's ever gone through the resume writing process, whether trying to do it on your own or with a professional, there is a bit of a time investment, right? So you think about, and even applications nowadays, they have assessments attached to them. They can take an hour of your time. You have to think, like, do I really want to go through all of this, all of these steps, investing time and in some cases money to apply to a job or to structure a resume and cover letter around a job that I don't like? No, the answer is no. So think about what you like to do. If you're not sure, I understand the audience may be a mix of experienced folks, maybe new grads. So if you're not sure, maybe you're changing careers, think about what you like to do, Google it. Think about why you like it, because that's going to be great for the cover letter. And just start with a job you like. Later on in the presentation, we're going to cover an example of someone who is figuring out what they like to do and starting off with the job type that they like, looking at different job descriptions and working from there. So if you don't know what kind of job you like, before you start trying to write a resume or a cover letter, think about what kind of job you're targeting. Okay. And then you're going to pull out the skills that you have, because those skills, we used to call them, KSAs, knowledge, skills, abilities. Those skills are going to be your important keywords, right? And if you are at a place where you are either a new grad, you're new to the job market, you're changing careers, there are going to be some parts of these job postings that you're going to think, well, maybe I don't have all of the skills. And that's okay. We're going to talk about marketing what you have instead of focusing on what you don't, right? And we're going to talk about also using strong action verbs to market your skills and accomplishments. You want to get away from wording like responsible for. It's very, very passive. You want to use strong words that really show your impact. That's going to make a difference, make the right kind of impression with the reader. And the reader could be a recruiter, it could be a hiring manager, it could be an HR manager, it could be the applicant tracking system, whoever is reading your resume first. And then once you found the job you like, once you have those keywords that you need, we're going to target the job. We're going to use that information to build the resume, build the cover letter around the job you want. And this is really important. I say this to clients all the time. Make it easy. Make it easy for an employer to see you as the one they want to hire. Remember, resumes don't get a lot of attention. It's a few seconds You have a few seconds to grab their attention and make it really easy for them to connect those dots between what they need and who you are. Okay. You don't want them to have to, think too hard before they see that you're the one they need to interview. So first things first, start with the job you like, because this is going to give you direction. This is going to help you to understand what you need, what the tone of your resume and cover letter needs to look like, all of those things. As I mentioned, look at a few postings of the job you like. So if you are a person who wants to go into finance, maybe you want a finance manager, maybe a finance coordinator, maybe there's a different type of finance role you like. Look at a few different finance postings, see which ones kind of appeal to you, and then think about, why do you like them? What do they have in common? If you're looking at 3 or 4 different postings for a similar job type, you're going to see a few common threads. You're going to see maybe they all want degrees in finance, accounting, or business. Maybe they all need me to be analytical. Maybe they all require me to know Microsoft Excel. Look for those common threads, because that's going to help give you direction. And once you have direction, the rest of it will flow beautifully. Now it's just a matter of thinking, okay, how have I used these skills? What are my measurable results? And move forward. But without that direction, you're not going to have that strong document that you need, right? As I mentioned here, make a note of the words, the terms, save them. You're going to need them. Now, as I'm going through this, if you have any questions or anything that you want me to take a moment and kind of expand on a little bit more, throw that into the chat. I want this to be as engaging and interactive as possible. Throw whatever questions you have into the chat feature, again, on WOBA or on Zoom, and we can take a moment and discuss really briefly before going on to the next slide. Don't feel like you have to wait until the end. So here's that step 2 we talked about, identifying the keywords. Now, remember those skills and abilities that you saw in the postings? We want to talk about must-haves versus nice-to-haves with this keywords. Now, every single employer, when they're creating a job description and they have those keywords, there are some keywords that are more important to them than others, right? There are some skills that are more important to them than others. There are some skills that they're willing to train you on, some systems and processes, and there are some things that you absolutely need to bring to the table. So for example, going back to that finance example, right? If you're looking at a couple of finance job descriptions, you may have to have a degree in finance. You might have to have knowledge of Microsoft Excel. But if they're using maybe a system like Tableau, then maybe they may be willing to train you on that. If they are, if this job requires certain skills, they may be able to train you on, so you can learn on the job. But there are some things that employers absolutely need. And there's a little note here I want you to pay really close attention to. The must-haves usually show up most in the job ad. So look for those keywords that show up most. So if it's a finance job, you're going to see a lot of keywords that are, finance related, things about reporting, analytics, those may pop up. And then you might see something at the bottom that says this skill is optional. This skill is a plus, right? Those things that say this skill is a plus, it's nice if you have this. Those are the nice to haves. So what I would recommend is when you're writing out your resume, you want to give the most attention to those must-haves. Those are your high-value keywords. Make sure that you have those skills. Make sure that those skills show up in your resume. The nice-to-haves, if you have them, great. If you don't sweat it, because the employer is not worried that much about it. But if you do have them, add them, because that could kind of, give you, they're like icing on the cake, right? The nice to haves are the icing. The must haves are the cake, okay? You need to have the cake. The icing for a lot of people is optional, okay? And they're valuable. So at this point, you know what kind of job that you're targeting. You looked at different job descriptions. You have looked at your high value keywords, your optional nice to have keywords. You have made note of them. You know, at this point, you would have kind of an idea of what the tone of your resume, your cover letter needs to be, the direction you're going in. Now you want to target the job. And these two images over here on the side here are literally taken from the toolkit. So what I'm talking about, you'll find it in there. These questions are written out with the answers. And there are strong action words there as well. So if you have the toolkit, no need to really probably take a lot of notes here because you'll have that in your hand. So once you know what job you're targeting, you have those keywords, which the applicant tracking system will be looking for and the reader will be looking for. You want to target the job. And the best way to do that is to ask yourself these three questions. Number one, do I have at least the must-have skills? And the answer here needs to be yes, because remember, these are your must-have skills. These are your high-value skills. You cannot apply the job if you don't have the skills that are absolutely required for the role. And these are not going to be transferable skills either. These are going to be skills that are unique to the role and the employer is saying they require. So the answer here needs to be yes. You want to have these skills, right? And then you want to ask yourself, how have I used them? Like when and where did you demonstrate these skills? And then you want to use those strong action words to make your experience stand out. So looking at these two alone right now, if we're talking about that finance example and you're seeing that a must-have skill is, I don't know, reporting through Microsoft Excel. Okay, yes, you might have that experience. And then how have you used them? You might want to think about, well, how did you use Excel and what kind of reports were you running? So that answers the how, right? And then in terms of the strong action words, you wouldn't say I was responsible for running reports. You might say, well, I generated this kind of report. I created this kind of report. You know, you want to show I analyzed data and used it to help to make these important decisions. You want to really tell that story for the reader. And then now the third question is really important. What are the positive results? Because you want to show measurable impact if you can. We know that realistically everything cannot be measured, but you want to make every effort to show that measurable impact because in the mind of an employer, numbers, data, measurable results equal value. They want to see that if you're using Microsoft Excel, you used it recently, you were generating, creating, building out these kinds of reports. Okay, well, these kinds of reports maybe increased efficiency 20%. Maybe these kinds of reports showed us something that was really important that helped to lower unnecessary costs 60%. You know, you want to really tell that complete story. And if you're going through these key questions, these three questions, you're going to be able to do that. Because you're going to focus on the must-have skill that you possess, how you used it, right? And that measurable result. So you communicate your unique value to the employer. And you want to make sure that you're not using passive, easy to breeze over language, but you're using attention grabbing, strong language that almost, you know, forces someone to see your worth and see your value, right? You don't want them passing over your resume and your cover letter. You want the language to speak to their need because remember at this point it's really about you showing them that you're their person. This is how you make it, as I mentioned earlier, easy for them to see you as their desired
I think we're frozen. So just give us a moment to contact Pamela. I think we're frozen. We'll get her back as soon as we can. Again, give us one moment. We realize that Pamela is frozen. Something must have happened with her internet, and we'll get her back. Just give us a few minutes, folks. We're going to get her back. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we are speaking with Pamela now on the phone, and we will get her back in. Just give us a moment. We have her on the phone. We're trying to get her back in. Thank you. All right, guys, we're making progress. We're making progress. Just hold on a bit longer.
All right.
There you are. You're on. Okay. Good luck.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, we see you.
Can you see me? Okay, awesome. So let me do a, I'm going to do a share screen again. I'm going to go. All right, I'm going to start off where I left off. Okay.
And to everyone waiting, thank you all so much for being patient. You know, these things happen in this virtual world.
Okay, and we are back. Everyone, thank you so much. I echo Tamika's sentiments. Thank you so much for being patient. Technology is not always our friend that we would like it to be, but I'm glad that we are able to get back together so quickly. So I'm going to just kind of start this portion off again, because I think this is where we kind of lost one another. Pulling everything together that we talked about. First things first, You want to start with the job you like. This gives you direction, and it also makes the process a much better use of your time and your energy. And if you're hiring a professional, your money, right? You want to make sure that you're putting all of that energy toward a job that you're really going to like. Number two, second bullet, you want to identify those keywords from the job description. This way, you don't have to wonder about what verbiage to use. Think of the job description as kind of like your cheat sheet. You don't want to copy it word for word, right? Because hiring managers can tell when you copy the job description and just kind of copied and pasted it into your resume. We can tell. So I know there are people who've gotten that advice from others, and I would say, listen, we can tell. And so you don't want to just copy and paste the verbiage, but you do want to take note of those keywords and use that to guide you. And here you go. Ask yourself those 3 questions. Do I have the skills? The answer needs to be yes here. You know, it's not a yes or no question, but the answer here needs to always be yes. You want to ask yourself, how do I use these skills, right? Think about the details and use those strong action words. Then what was the positive result, right? Is there data that I can use here to really show what I did, right? Think about that. All right. And then you want to use your answers to all of these questions to create the cover letter and the resume that speak directly to that job. Okay. So as a next step, I really want us to kind of apply these lessons, not just talk about them. So let's apply what we've learned. All right. We're going to review some actual job descriptions. We're going to see what they have in common. Remember, I talked about grabbing 3 or 4 jobs, paying attention to those common threads. We're going to do that here and now. I'm going to grab those keywords and we're going to create our cover letter and resume. All right, this is going to be the fun part. And if you have any questions, whether you're on Zoom or Lova, definitely put those in the chat and we will talk about them. So as an example, I thought it'd be really, really simple. Just literally give us a person to focus on and kind of go from there. So here's Morgan. Morgan is a recent grad, has a bachelor's degree in business. She wants a career in operations. Operations is a pretty big field, so jobs are not going to look, one way. So this is a great job type for us to use for our example. She's captain of her girls' volleyball team in school, and she's a recent grad. She's resourceful, detailed, customer service, problem-solving skills. She's active in her church. She has a part-time job while in school. She's completed a 2-year internship at a global company. She volunteers in her spare time. And I thought it would be helpful to note she's nervous about her job search and desperate to build her career. So if you notice here, we're not just talking about job-related skills like, her, or job-related attributes like her bachelor's degree or her internship. We're also talking about her community service. We're talking about who she is as a person, because all of these things, believe it or not, play a part in your creating the cover letter and the resume. If you think about it, a lot of resumes include community service, right? Because there are a lot of people who they may not have a lot of hands-on job experience, but if you are a recent grad and you have some leadership experience on campus, you can use that to market your potential. Earlier on in our presentation, I said, we're going to market what you have and not worry about what you don't. So if you can market your potential and your leadership skills, that could get your foot in the door for an operations role, right? She is active in her church. There are a lot of people. I have had a lot of new grad candidates who say, I don't have any leadership skills. Oh, but I am president of my youth group at my church. I go, well, that's leadership. And if your youth group has 10 to 15 people and you're the president, well, that means that you have over a year of experience managing a team of 10 to 15 people. You sound like a people leader to me, right? So all of these things, even though they might have one wondering why are they here, the experience here translates into the business world. Okay? So let's look at jobs that Morgan likes. Operations manager role. Here's one. Now, this job requires her to have leadership experience, be a strong communicator, and have business acumen. This one, another operations manager role. People leadership. See, already we've got some common themes here. Leadership. Right? And remember, she was a captain of her volleyball team, and she's active in her church, and she volunteers, and she has an internship. Now, strong communicator, communication skills. They may be worded differently, but it's the same experience. Okay? And here we're also seeing training experience. And here we go again. Training experience, business acumen. And this one says experience in global and domestic markets. Remember, Morgan worked for a global Fortune 500 company as an intern. So she's got that too. The ability to multitask, professionalism, and leadership. So here are 4 different operations roles, but they have a lot in common, right? So if you think of a job that you like and you go out to Google, or even LinkedIn, and you look for jobs that you like and you pull out 3 or 4, you're going to see some common themes. Training more than once, leadership and communication more than once. So these are things that Morgan would look to and say, oh, well, if I need to present strongly as a candidate for these types of jobs, I better make sure that my resume and cover letter highlight my strengths in these areas. Okay? So let's look at her cover letter. And remember, the cover letter is where you introduce yourself. It's where you can market your transferable skills. So for example, if you are applying for, I'm going to say finance again, if you're applying for a finance role, and maybe you might have a degree in finance, spend a little bit of time in the corporate world, but now you, or maybe you're applying for a job as a math teacher and you had a finance background. Those skills transfer. So your cover letter might mention, well, I spent, 10 years in finance, and now I'd like to teach, mathematics. So the cover letter is where you can market those transferable skills. It's where you sell your potential and you draw attention to the resume. It's where you essentially you whet the appetite for the resume, right? So here's what Morgan's cover letter would look like. As you can tell, it is structured like any other cover letter. Remember, this is still a letter. So your standard letter writing rules and formatting guidelines would apply here. Okay, you want to, in that first line, that first sentence, that first paragraph, you want to mention the job title that you're applying to. Talk about where you saw it posted. So Morgan might say, I'm applying to the operations manager role that I saw posted on LinkedIn, right? And make sure that you follow instructions. A lot of these job ads may have very special instructions as to how they want to receive your application. And if you're not following those instructions, what happens is your application gets tossed out. It doesn't even get read because they're thinking, well, I need this information. They don't have it. Next. Remember that you're never the only candidate, right? There are always going to be other people who are applying to these jobs. And the last thing you want is for your application not to be given a fair shot simply because you missed a piece of instruction in the job ad and you didn't give them the information they needed. So follow any special instructions. If they're saying, please include your salary requirements with your application, work that into the email, work that into what you're submitting. Make sure you're giving them what they're looking for. When it comes to the next paragraph, you want to make sure that you're aligning your strengths to the knowledge and your strengths rather to the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required for the job. You want to, as I mentioned a second ago, whet the appetite for the resume. You want the reader to want to learn more about you, right? Going over here, you want to, you can see my mouse moving. Over here, you want to make sure that you are mentioning the job title And there are some, going back to that note about special instructions, there are some jobs, some employers who may say, please reference the job number in your application. Please reference, R12345. So we know what job you're applying to, because that company, especially if they're a large company, that company might have 10 jobs open with similar titles. So you simply including a job number helps them to easily understand what job you are or you want to be considered for. So if that's what they want, and this template that we're looking at, this is in the toolkit. So if you have any questions around it or wondering, why certain parts are grayed out, that's intentional. It's a template style, so it's definitely here for you. And I actually show you where to put this information. You'll see a regarding line with the job title, job ID, if it's applicable. You want to try also to avoid greeting your reader with "to whom it may concern." Nowadays with LinkedIn, you can find, you can usually find who the hiring manager is, who posted the job. That information is usually public. So you can actually address it to a person, or you can address it to the appropriate department. And sometimes they'll tell you exactly who to address it to in the job ad. But take the extra step and just kind of, avoid saying "to whom it may concern." It just sounds very, very generic and impersonal. And this is your first step to building a relationship with the organization. You want to be, personal here if you can. And then before closing the letter, invite the reader to review your resume. Remember, you are trying to get them to be engaged and interested enough in you that they want to read your resume and give it more than those 6 seconds that resumes typically get. And here's where you confirm your interest, right? You already stated in the beginning that you're interested in the role. Here's where you confirm that interest in the role and in scheduling an interview, and you confirm and you invite them to read your resume. And then you want to have a nice ending, but always, always, always mention that you are available for an interview. Some may even say, please send your availability. So you might at the end say, I'm available to interview with, 48 hours notice. Something like that to kind of help them to understand when, how quickly you can interview. So this is a great example of what a winning cover letter would look like. It hits on all the major parts. The formatting is perfect. It's not longer than 1 page. It expresses your interest. It's very direct. You want this job. Here's where you saw it. Here are the skills that speak to the job. And here's why you should read my resume. And then after you read my resume and you're even more impressed with me and think I'm even more awesome, invite me to interview. If you give me at least a day or 2 notice, I can be there, or I can log on to a Zoom. That should be part of your closing. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to go over to the resume. Once they've read your cover letter, they're going to want to read your resume, right? And here's where you're going to market your skills, abilities, measurable results, grab the reader's attention. I cannot stress this point enough. I'm pretty sure I've said that a couple of times today. Grab their attention. Get your interview. Okay. Now, remember we talked about targeting the job. I have this here intentionally as a reminder because when you're creating the resume, this is where you're going to execute on all these 3 things. You have the skills. How did you use them? What were the results? And I kind of spelled this out for Morgan on the next slide. And so I want us to see what that would look like. So here's how we do that. Now, I did this for Morgan, but you can do this for yourself. So when you see the job that you like, you think, do I have these skills? Remember, the answer, especially for those high value skills, is always yes. You have the skills. You are the person they need to meet with. And I have here a list of the skills that she has. So remember we talked about she has leadership experience. She has operations experience. She has trained people. She's a match on education. She's managed people. And she has all those soft skills. Detailed, highly organized, analytical. She learns fast. So now that she knows she has all the skills and it's a big yes for her there, as it will be for you, you have to think, well, how did I use them, right? So here's where we get a little bit more detailed, right? We say, well, Morgan developed leadership as an athlete and in her internship, right? She gained operations experience and exposure to global markets from her internship. She gained training experience from her part-time job as well as her internship. And then she demonstrated business acumen while in school, right? So this is something that you can use for yourself. It's not just, do I have these skills? It's, how did I use them? Where did I use them? And this is where you would also start to apply those strong action words, right? And then now we're talking about positive results. So if you're doing this for yourself, you're going to follow these same 3 steps. Do you have the skills? The answer is yes. How did you use them? And that how is, well, I use them in this position, in this way, at this time. Okay. And then here's some positive results. So Morgan led an operations project that increased productivity 30%. In her community service positions, she managed budgets up to 100K. So you can see she has the skills, she used them, there were positive results. And this is how you would craft those individual bullet points on your resume, right? So let's look at that. So here is what her resume would look like. Okay, and this again, template comes from Toolkit, nothing that you would have to try to screenshot or take a note of. You would probably already have this if you have the Toolkit. So Morgan's resume. Her resume, it markets her skills and her measurable impact in a way that gets her the interview. Okay, so if you look here, first thing I talk about is the contact information. And this is on my left side of the screen. You want your contact information to be easy to find. Avoid hiding it in a header where it's grayed out and someone has to search for it and it might not even show up right away. It doesn't show up as easily as if you just had it typed out. You want your contact information to be easy to find. Include the URL to your LinkedIn profile. Nowadays, I mean, we're in this virtual world, especially with COVID, we're not getting together the way we used to. And so websites like LinkedIn become even more important because that's how we are connecting to opportunities. It's how we're connecting to each other. It's how we're networking and still continuing to build our relationships is through LinkedIn. So if you have a LinkedIn profile, definitely, have a hyperlink or something on your resume. Have a professional email address. It's common for folks to have more than one email address. You may have one that you use for your friends, everyday social situations. And then you have one that's just for business. If it's for business, it should be really simple. It should really just be your name, maybe 1 or 2 numbers, and that's it. But you want to keep it really, really professional. Avoid any nicknames, common names, anything like that. You just want to have your name. Keep it really, really simple. Have your phone number there. And I am this on Morgan's resume. I just have New York, New York. You can have like a general, because number one, your detailed address is already on the cover letter because it's in proper letter format. And so you can kind of just put your general, city and state here. Okay. I'm going to pause because I'm seeing a question and I want to answer it. Can you talk a little bit more about how to find the hiring manager for a specific position? Thanks. Absolutely. So best way to find a hiring manager for a role is LinkedIn, hands down. And nowadays LinkedIn is used, the job board is used, every company is using LinkedIn. So what you can do, if you found that job on LinkedIn, it's really easy. All you do, you literally just scroll down and you'll usually see a part of the posting. And if it's a really long posting, we have to scroll down a little bit further than normal, but way at the bottom, you will see a part that says this job was posted by Pamela Shand. Okay, then Pamela Shand is either the hiring manager or the recruiter. Either way, she's the person that you want to address that cover letter to. Another way to do it is if you found the job off of LinkedIn, you can look at the level of the job. So, for example, if you are applying to an operations manager job for, I don't know, AT&T. So you hop on LinkedIn and you find someone who's maybe an ops director, an ops senior manager, same office. You can say, well, maybe this is the hiring manager or someone on that team. You're more than welcome to say, okay, reach out to that person, ask them. I've encouraged clients to do that, do this. Reach out and say, hi, my name is Morgan. I found this job posted. It seems to be, in your office. Would you be the appropriate point of contact? I'd love to send you my application. Reach out. But the absolute best way to find out who posted that job and who the hiring manager could be, who the recruiter could be, who your point of contact could be, so you're not applying and feeling like you're going into a black hole, is to absolutely leverage LinkedIn. Absolutely. It is your best tool to find out who posted that job. So that's the number one piece of advice that I could share with you, is to hop on LinkedIn and reach out to the individual that's there. All right, so let's continue to get into this. Going down, so on the left side, if you're a new grad, I would recommend moving the academic accomplishment or the education piece further up above work history. If you are somebody who, let's say you graduated more than 5 years ago, you can move it down. Because at that point, you've got at least 5 years of work history. You can have that be the star of the show. But if you're a new grad or you're graduating soon, you can certainly add in progress degrees to your resume. Certainly you'd want to move your education up. Okay, so now going over to the right side on the top, I have here a skill summary to start off, Morgan's resume, and that's intentional. You want to get away from objectives. They don't help you. What an objective does is an objective tells an employer what you want or what you're targeting, or what kind of job you're looking for. But the purpose of your application is to show them why you are the solution to their problems. So the skills summary and a branding statement shows off your skills. It does a few things. It shows off your skills, of course, and it allows you to list the very skills needed for this job. And this is usually the part of the resume that helps a lot of people get past the applicant tracking system, because if that job is looking for strategic planning, people leadership, business development, and you have that revenue generation and you have that right here, it does two things. It gets you beyond the applicant tracking system, which is that system that's scanning your resume for keywords. And when someone's reading your resume, data shows that most of the attention goes to the top 1/3 of your resume. So if they're looking at this top portion and they're seeing the skills, Microsoft Office, Excel, Word, Outlook, they're seeing keywords that they're looking for that speak directly to their job. They're seeing operations manager, which is what the job titles that Morgan's targeting are. Then immediately they're going to think it makes sense to talk to Morgan, because she's got all the things, she's checking all the boxes with just a skill summary. We haven't even gotten into her detail and her experience. All we've done is give a skill summary, and immediately she's gotten their attention. Immediately in their mind, they're starting to connect the dots between who she is and what they need for their role. Now, here, when we get into the work history, here's where you show off the measurable results. So she worked for a Fortune 500 company. She was an intern. She's got her key accomplishments, her contributions. She's talking about, where she was and when she was there, what she did. She's got her part-time job listed here. And I have here, show off your measurable results and your key accomplishments. Go beyond just what you did. Go beyond what you were responsible for, right? Because that sounds too much like job description verbiage. You want to sound like the standout superstar that you are. So go beyond the job duties and talk about the accomplishments, talk about your key contributions and your value adds. Okay, and here at the bottom, here's where you highlight community service, leadership, if you have any publications, if you've been featured in a magazine, a newspaper, those are usually published online nowadays, but if you are featured anywhere, you definitely want to highlight that. If you have any professional memberships, if you're in HR, maybe you're a member of SHRM, maybe you're a member of, National Black MBA, any of those organizations, LATPRO, any of them, you want to show that off here. Here you can see for Morgan, she's got that she's captain of the girls volleyball team. She's a volunteer in her local hospital, and she's a youth leader at her church. So these are all the ways that someone like Morgan would make the best out of her education, her entry-level experience, what she brings to the table in terms of skills that she's built, and even her community involvement. She is presenting all of who she is as a professional in a way that speaks to the role, shows her value, and sells all of the skills and abilities that she has to offer. Okay, so let's look at what we've learned. Number one, start with the job you like. The application process requires so much from you. It only makes sense that you start with the job you like. Identify the keywords that you need. Ask yourself these 3 questions and target the job you want in the cover letter, in the resume. Applicant tracking systems, they scan the resume, they scan the cover letter. So you want to make sure that you are presenting your best self and you're including those, these targeting strategies in both documents. Okay, all right, awesome. Well, this is the end of our presentation. In addition to looking us up, as Tamika mentioned, you can certainly keep in touch with us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're always sharing helpful tips, tricks, different ways to improve your resume, cover letter skills, interviewing tips. All those things are shared. So feel free to connect with us on any social media outlet and stay in touch. All right. I also have my direct contact information here. So feel free to email, feel free to reach out by phone, and then our website is here as well. Okay.
And Pamela, I think you have 2 questions in the chat.
I see, I have the chat open right now. Let's see. Okay. Does that, looking at the top 1/3, apply to each page of a 2-page resume? No, it does not. That's a great question. A lot of resumes, especially if you're a professional and you've got a lot of experience, you're going to have like a 2-page resume. You want to try to keep the 2 pages if you can. And this, of course, depends on your specialty. There are folks, if you're in the medical field or another field, it could go beyond that. But for people mostly on the operations side, your finance, operations, HR, 2 pages is great. The top 1/3 speaks to the top 1/3 of the first page, which is why we have that skills summary. It comes complete with a branding statement. It shows off your core competencies, and depending upon the individual, there are times when your professional resume writer may even include career highlights in there, because it's all about grabbing their attention. If you grab their attention well in the beginning, they're more inclined to read the entire thing and give you more of their time. But you have to kind of incentivize them to do that. And you do that by making that top 1/3 really attractive. So to directly answer your question, it applies to the top 1/3 of the first page. Okay. Next question. So I'm going on the list here. Someone says, I've come across resumes as short as 1 page to those that are over 10 pages. What do you recommend as an ideal length? Or does this vary on the position? Top executive positions tend to have many years of experience and accomplishments on the resume. Great, great, great question. So I'm going to kind of tackle this piece by piece. As an ideal length, 2 pages. 2. And yes, it does vary on the, I would say less on the position and more so on your industry. So for example, if you are, and I used earlier a second ago, in the medical field, right? I've seen those resumes go to 3 pages and it's perfectly acceptable in their field. But for the most part, it's 2 pages. And that's done for a number of different reasons. One, attention span. You've got very busy executives, very busy hiring managers and recruiters going through a lot of resumes at a time. And they just don't have the time to read 5 pages. And so because of that, and this goes into the second part of that answer, it also helps to demonstrate your effective communication skills, right? If you're an effective communicator, it won't take you, in terms of written communication. The thought is it shouldn't take you 10 pages to communicate, I don't know, maybe 15 years of experience, 20. It can absolutely be done in 2 pages. And if you are unsure, I would absolutely say reaching out to a professional, someone like me. We can absolutely show you how we do that. It's one of the things that we do with clients all the time. Okay, it's showing them how to whittle down their information to 2 pages, but still highlighting the important things. Let's see. Okay, so I think we've answered that. Link to the toolkit. Okay, I'm going to literally just put that in the chat. So I'm typing. Okay, there you go. Okay, use that. I'll give you, and I'll leave the code up.
I'm going to share it. I'll share it because I think you sent it just to me, but I'll share it with everyone.
Yep, and I'll leave it up for the remainder of the week. So I'll say, let's say available until Monday, March 1st. Okay. Let's scroll up. I didn't want to miss any. There was another question here. Okay. How do large and small employers verify employment and education? So through background checks, in a very simple, and direct answer. Background checks, they cover more than just criminal history. Background checks can cover address history. They can cover your ability to legally work within the US, especially if that company is unable to offer sponsorship. They verify employment and education. So that is covered through background checks. And because you have vendors who target, who work specifically with, I should say, small companies, you can have a small company and still have the ability to run a background check. That's not something that only happens when you're applying to opportunities with large organizations. You have background check vendors now that will partner with organizations of all sizes. So whether they're large or small, they can verify that through a background check. Should you provide phone numbers for your history in your resume? I think, and I may need some clarity here, Joan, but it sounds like you're saying maybe should you provide, I don't know, maybe references, or literally on the resume include maybe contact information for the employer. You don't have to, it's not required. I would recommend, if that's where you're going with this question, I would recommend saving that until maybe a reference is requested. And at that point, you could provide that information. I'm just going to scroll down. Okay. How is that handled if the company went out of business? Okay. How is what handled?
I think they're referring to
background check. Okay.
Background check, yeah.
Okay, so here's what may happen with the back. If the company goes out of business, then that would be something that they may be unable to check because there's no one there they can reach out to. So I've seen this happen different ways. Sometimes even if the company has maybe just gone out of business, and maybe there's one person in the office, maybe somebody who's wrapping things up, there may be somebody who can confirm dates of employment or something along those lines, but that does not usually happen. That's a rarity. What usually happens is that they may go back to the candidate, and if the candidate is you, they'll go back to you and they'll say, we're having difficulty reaching an employer. At that point, you could say, well, they went out of business, and they will just be unable to check because the company will no longer exists. But usually what a background check vendor will do if they're having difficulty either reaching someone or verifying some part of your background, whether it be education, employment, anything like that, they will reach out to you. Should that hinder you from getting the job? It shouldn't. It shouldn't, because it's not your fault they went out of business, right? It should not hinder you from getting the job. It shouldn't. And if that's a concern, that's something that you can absolutely raise to the appropriate individual, but it should not hinder you from getting a job. It's not your fault that a company goes out of business and they're unable to reach them for a background check. Going forward though, if you are applying for a job, this is where you probably get ahead of that. If you're applying for a job and you know that your last employer or a recent employer, typically background checks go back 7 to 10 years, so that might give you some help there. But if a recent employer went out of business, you might want to write that in or add that into either, if there's a handwritten application, write that in there, make a note of that on whatever paperwork you fill out for the background check, share that information with whoever your point of contact is for the background. Maybe it might be a coordinator, recruiter, HR manager. Make them aware of what's happening. So that way, when this is flagged, it's not something that impacts you negatively. You're welcome. Okay. What other questions might I be able to answer? And I'm also, well, I have it here. My contact information is here on the screen. It's still there. Okay. All right. Awesome.
Well, great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes. It has been another good, strong hour of content. And I see people are oh, okay, that was you saying you're welcome to me.
Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay. So just want to highlight again, as you can see, how to get in touch with Pamela. And I'm going to put in the chat again the link to the toolkit. And Pamela, thank you. You're going to make that available until Monday, March 1st, I see.
And I'm also putting in my personal LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to me, connect with me, you can absolutely do that.
Okay. Wonderful. Good. Okay, guys. Well, we want to officially thank Pam again. Please do reach out to her. We've had a wealth of information shared here. I do want to say, while you're here, folks, please make time to stop by and visit the virtual booths. that are on the quote unquote show floor available now for all of you. There are several positions available, so it'd be a great opportunity now to take everything that you've learned over yesterday and today and put it into practice. Start reaching out, start building those relationships with those organizations. We have over 30 companies with virtual booths, and believe it or not, more are signing up. So I just talked to New Haven Biz, for example. They're hiring for a staff writer and a sales rep. So that might be a position that someone out there might be able to apply to. So stay tuned. They'll be up with their virtual booth very, very soon. I also wanted to highlight, after this presentation, after we end this webinar, you will be able to join the 2 o'clock webinar by going back into Hoopa and clicking on that link to start that. With the time that we have left, I did want to play a message from one of our sponsors really quick, and then we will close it out. So just give me a second to share my screen.
Our team at RJ Media Group provides award-winning, trusted local news and advertising to Central Connecticut. We know your customers and we know how to reach them. We combine the strength of 154 years of history and local ownership with an innovative, cutting-edge mindset to provide breaking news to our readers and help local businesses grow. We are your comprehensive resource for all of your marketing needs, from traditional advertising to digital marketing. We are the only media group that reaches 100% of homes and 265,000 readers in our 9-town region of Central Connecticut. To schedule a meeting, please call Dundee at 203-671-8367.
All right, thank you for indulging me. It was important that we recognize our sponsors. We appreciate them so much. Again, Pamela, thank you so much for your time and all the information that you've shared with us. And people know how to get in touch with you. And so we will be talking soon, I know. We've got a great relationship. I want to keep it going.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for having me. I look forward to that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
And guys, remember, we're going to close this one down, but if you want to go to the 2 o'clock session about returning to work, please join that session. All right, and visit those booths. Take care.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.